This lesson is going to be over quadratic questions and the OGT. So how are quadratic used in questions on the Ohio graduation test? Alright, well the first question we have here is kind of a difficult question. This is an extended response question that was on a previous test, and this is worth 4 points. So this question would be worth 4 points on your OGT, which is the highest value on the test. If it's a 4-point question, that means there are going to be 4 things you need to do. So let's read the question and see what it has us to do. To solve a math problem, Penny is graphing the equation y equals x squared and y equals x squared plus 1. To graph the equation, she needs to create the tables below. In your answer document, copy the tables above and find the y values for each of the x values. Use the grid provided to graph each equation using the xy values. Based on the graphs you have completed, analyze how the graphs differ and write a hypothesis to describe how adding a number to x squared changes the graph of x squared. Now this is not that difficult. In the previous lesson we just did it. So you shouldn't have any problems doing it. It gives you the table for you. But let's figure out the 4 things that we need to do. It says in your answer document, copy the tables and find the xy values Use the grid provided and graph each equation. Based on the graphs you've completed, analyze how the graphs differ and write a hypothesis to describe how adding a number changes the graph. Okay? So, we have to copy the tables, find the xy values, graph the equation, and write how they're different. So those are the 4 things we have to do. Alright, so what do we know? Well, the first thing we know about our equation is we know, looking at this, we have both equations and we have the x values. So that's what we know. We know the equations, okay, and we know the x values. Well, what do we have to do? We have to copy the table, find the y values, graph the equations, and tell how they are different. Now, you can use KDAC if you want. Do you have to write it in this table? No, but you really do need to go through what you know, what you need to do, and then answer, and make sure your answers are everything that you need to do. And you don't have to do it in this particular table, but as long as you do those steps, that it would be very helpful. So we're going to answer this. So that's the next part we're going to do, is we're going to answer. So the first thing we have to do is find the y values. So we're going to substitute x in for x squared. So negative 3 squared is 9. Negative 2 squared is 4. Negative 1 squared is 1. 0, 1, 4, 9. Now, negative 3 squared plus 1 is 10, 5, 2, 1, 2, 5, 10. Now, just looking at our chart, you probably can see the difference between what 1 does to our y values. So, let's just look at the chart for a minute and see if you can figure out what the difference is between just x squared and x squared plus 1. Look at our values. What do you notice about the y values? Alright, let's see if you're correct on the next page. Alright, so now we need to graph our equations. So what we need to do is we need to graph negative 3, 9. Negative 3, 9. I'll graph one equation in red and one equation in blue. negative 3, 9, negative 2, 4, negative 1, 1, zero, 0, and these will all line up this way. Alright, so that's our first graph. Alright, our second graph, negative 3, 10, negative 2, 5, negative 1, 2, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 3, 2, 5, and 3, 10. Alright, here's our second graph. Alright, now, what is different about these graphs? And what is the same? Well, one equation is y equals x squared, and one is y equals x squared plus 1. Now, I probably should have written this in red. So let's take that off. Y equals x squared. Now, what do you notice differently about this graph? Because so far we have copied the table, we have found the values, and we have graphed them. So the last thing we have to do is tell how they're different. So how are they different? Okay, well, the blue line is just one step higher than the red line. So in our equation, this x plus 1 tells you where the vertex is going to be, or where it's going to cross the y-axis. So the 1 tells you that it's going to cross the y-axis at positive 1. If it was negative 1, it would cross the y-axis at negative 1. If it was plus 2, it would cross the y-axis at plus 2. So we analyze the graph, so what we need to say is, well, let's see what our questions asked us. Write a hypothesis to describe how adding a number to x squared changes the graph. So you can say adding a number to x squared changes where the graph crosses, I don't know why this keeps doing that, the y-axis. Get rid of this stuff then. So we found out that adding a number to x squared changes where the graph crosses the y-axis, and that's all you have to do. That was simple 4 points. The next question states, which graph represents the equation negative x squared plus 3? Well, what we've learned in the past is that the sign in front of the x squared tells if it's going to open up or down. So if it's a negative, so that means it's going to open down. And our plus 3 tells us the y-axis is at 0, 3. So we know it's going to open up. We know it's going to open up down. So that leaves out that one, and that one. And we know it's going to start. The vertex is going to be at plus 3. So this is plus 3, and it opens up down. So it has to be B. The table below shows values for a function. Okay, so it shows values for a function, and so it says which equation represents this function. So x is 1, y is 4. X is 2, y is 9. X is 3, y is 16, and so on. Now the easiest thing to do, I think, is to just substitute the x values in for y. So if we substitute, and I would pick two of them. I'd pick the first one and the last one, or pick the middle one. I would just not do the first one because you could have more than, you can come up with more than one answer sometimes. So at least try two values. So let's try. If I do x is 1. So if x is 1, this would equal y equals 1 squared, which is 1. Well, that's wrong because it's supposed to equal 4, so we know that one's not right. Y equals x squared plus 1. Well, x squared, y equals x squared plus 1. So that means that our x squared is 1. So 1 squared is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. That's not right. X minus 1 squared. So 1 minus 1 squared. That's 0. And then x plus 1. X plus 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So right now, D is working. So let's try it with another number. Let's try D first. We'll say x is 2. So if x is 2, that'd be 2 plus 1 squared. 2 plus 1 is 4. Or 2 plus 1 is 3. And 3 squared is 9. So, in this case, D is the correct answer. Hopefully that has helped you understand how quadratics are going to be used on the OGT. If you have any other questions, contact your teacher.